Good afternoon, students, parents, teachers, and guests. My name is Dominic Trinidad, and I'm an incoming second year at Durham University in the UK, and I'm the current president of Camp Philippines. I would like to extend a warm welcome on behalf of the Camp team to this year's Study Abroad conference entitled Now Boarding College. To the students here, I was in your same position over 3 years ago, clueless about the college application process abroad. Despite that, I was eager to explore the realm of possibilities that I could undertake in order to achieve my dreams. I would say that my study abroad journey started with camp. I went to my first study abroad conference in 2019 at Assumption College, when we were still allowed to have big conferences and gatherings. There, I was able to learn more about the college application process abroad from fellow Filipinos, as well as explore different universities around the world through the college fair. And what I took from that conference, the knowledge, the network, and the mentorship, is what I think has led me to this point. Looking back from 3 years ago, who would have thought that this clueless incoming high school junior would actually be able to pursue her dreams studying abroad and even leading the organization that helped her to do that. So I hope that all of you here will be able to learn a lot from this conference. And in a couple of years' time, you will also be in my position studying what you love in your dream university abroad. Throughout the course of the 3 weekends for conference, we will have many events to help you gain knowledge in the international college application process. We have talks about deciding your destination. Spoiler alert, I may or may not be there. A day in the life of a college student, financial aid, transferring, extracurricular activities, and essay writing, amongst others. We will also have a session for a mentorship program, which will be open in a few weeks' time. So that will be very exciting. Moreover, we will also have a college fair where you can learn more about the different universities all over the world. And you would get a chance to ask questions to their representatives and current students. This year also marks a very important year for Camp Philippines. It is actually a 10th year anniversary from when we were first founded by 3 former Filipino scholars at the International School Manila, Kimi Rodriguez, Kay Kagawan, and Michi Ferriol. The organization aims to bridge the accessibility gap between Filipino high school students and opportunities to pursue tertiary education abroad. Since Camp's founding, we have catered to thousands of incoming, current, and graduated university students from the Philippines. In the past 2 years, we've managed to successfully hold 2 online conferences with over thousands of attendees from all over the Philippines, and we hope to replicate or surpass that this year to bring more awareness about studying abroad to Filipino high school students. Indeed, Camp Philippines continues to inspire the new generation of Filipinos to study abroad. And in light of that, I would like to introduce a very accomplished keynote speaker who has become an inspiration to many people, including myself. She's a graduate of New York University, where she obtained her degree in Bachelor's of Arts in Mathematics and Economics last May. At NYU, she served as Vice President of NYU Actuarial Society and the NYU Economic Development Group. She was also active in Bridges for Enterprise, an organization that helps social enterprise in developing countries. As a consulting director, she worked with social enterprises based in Uganda, Mexico, and Kenya. Post-grad, she is set to work in New York as an analyst for a boutique consulting firm. She has personally helped me in my college application journey, and I'm sure that she would be of great help to you guys as well during your speech day. So everyone, let's please welcome Jill Robredo.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to the team behind Camp who invited me for today's keynote speech. And to everyone here today, thank you so much for joining. I can't see anyone, so I'm just talking to a screen, but thank you all so much for joining. Just to introduce myself again, thank you, Q, for that introduction. I'm Jill Robredo, and I just graduated from NYU a bit more than a month ago. And now I'm transitioning from being a student, enjoying my last summer before joining the workforce full-time in September. And, you know, with a lot of changes happening in the last 6 months, from academics and even to my personal life, I've just kind of been just kind of been holding my breath, but having been invited here has really made me think about my journey. And of course, a big chunk of it was me studying abroad and how these experiences have shaped me in all aspects of my life. Sorry. Wait, maybe I can share my screen, Q. Wait, where is she?
Yes. Can you try share screen?
Hold on, sorry. Uh, hmm. Can you see it or no? Yes, yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
Um, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I think for maybe the next 10, 15 minutes, um, I know a lot of you are probably graduating high school in the next year or two. And this period of transition and choosing a college or university is a time that can give you so much anxiety. And I've also been in that position 5 years ago. And I think some might not agree now. Even it took me a while to believe that rejection actually means redirection, whether that's to a college or university, or even applying for an org leadership or an applying for an internship or a job, to the things that are more meant for you. But that doesn't mean, or that's not an excuse that you wouldn't try. I think looking back on my journey, there were more rejections that I would have wanted, but all of these were essential to get where I am and get where I needed to be, even if at that time I didn't know that I was meant to be there. I know camp has a series of information sessions when it comes to choosing a school, what to put in your applications, how to do well in the SATs or ACTs. So I wouldn't dive much into that, but I wanted to share how my story unfolded and the things I carried with me throughout this journey and some of the things I wish I knew. So, kind of just like looking back on the last 5 years of my life, and four of those were studying abroad. So, first, there's the good kind of peer pressure, which I think now you would know because everyone here in this call is aiming to dream bigger and dream higher. So I actually haven't thought of studying abroad until my batchmates in Pisay brought the idea up. So for context, I graduated from Philippine Science High School main campus in 2018. I was the first batch of K to 12. But before that, I was based in Naga City in Camarines Sur. I'm actually here right now. And I think growing up, my dream was to go to school in Manila, like my parents and my siblings, because that's all we've ever really known. But my peers in Pisay started talking about taking the SATs or their summer program in the school in the US and how nice it was. And buti na lang, I have a bit of FOMO. So I also wanted to take the SATs and apply for colleges abroad. And through them, I realized that studying abroad was a dream that can be turned into reality. However, in high school, contrary to popular belief, that people who were able to study abroad were only the top of their class, the cream of the cream of the crop, I was at best an average student in Pisay. I joined maybe a club or two, was part of my school swimming team, but we didn't even compete outside Pisay, was relatively decent in math, but almost failed my chemistry class in grade 9 and cried after defending my research paper in 10th grade to the point where I think my teacher just gave me a passing mark out of pity. At first, I was discouraged to even try because I thought my application would be weak, wouldn't shine even if I was ranked in the hundreds in a batch of 240 students. So maybe in the top 50% of my batch. But it was a good thing I still did try. But because I was in the loop a bit later than everyone else, if there was any regret when it came to my applications, is that I should have started earlier. So good for everyone here that you're all thinking about it as early as now. I remember taking the SATs in October of my senior year. And if you didn't know, usually the regular decision applications for school in the US would be in January 1st. And I would have researched more on schools. I had no idea what the best fit was. I didn't know anyone in NYU or anyone close to me studying in the US. So I couldn't really ask how their experience was like. And I wasn't part of any mentorship program. So I think I attended camp in 2015, but after that, I didn't really reach out to anyone anymore. Because at that point, I was so scared of rejection that I decided to keep it to myself and my family. So it was a good thing. My second sister is a good writer. She helped me in all of my essays. And my other sister and my mom really helped me with the application. So that was good. But we were the only ones who knew that I was applying, so that I didn't have to deal with the potential rejection when results came out in front of other people, which looking back was kind of ridiculous because almost everyone I know has been rejected to a school they were applying for, be it their dream school or not. And I think this brings me to my next point, that it's okay to ask for help. I've only really embraced that it's okay to ask for help and less bihiya when I was first accepted to NYU. I didn't know how much I wanted it until then. Because initially, I only got a partial scholarship, so I had to look for more sources of funding. Through friends of friends who I asked for help, I was connected to students and professors in the school. And they were more than happy to send me resources and links. And actually, the professor I was talking to, he was the former dean of College of Arts and Science in NYU and was also Filipino. Luckily, he had a plant genetics lab, which at that time was very relevant for my major. So I was able to get part-time work during the school year, which helped because I was able to cover my living expenses in NYC, which is pretty high. And that professor ended up being my first ever boss and has been such a great mentor throughout college and especially now as I navigate the professional world. I really appreciated all the friends and all my relatives who connected me to people they knew in New York because I didn't know anyone. And at that time, they basically volunteered the people they know to just message them when I needed help. And that's also when I realized, and I think you will realize now that as you grow older, how important networking is. And through knowing these people, and even myself included, I realized that these people are more than happy to help and pay it forward because they also wouldn't be there without other people's help. And I think looking back at these initial connections, they really helped carve my own path in college. And all of these wouldn't have happened if I didn't ask around for help and advice. Because before, I used to think when I was already set to go to a college or university, it would be the end point. Maybe now your goal is just to go to a good university, but it really is just a starting point. It's not the end point of all you've worked for in high school, but each stage or phase of your life, it's important to remember that someone also went through a similar thing, and it would only be beneficial for you to reach out to those people, especially having been through the last 4 years. It gives you a chance to discover and rediscover yourself, but not necessarily leaving all your bad habits here in the Philippines, but carrying the lessons from these experiences and improve. And to be able to handle all of these changes and transitions, you will have to accept that you also need people to pull you out of the dark and help you make sense of the unknown. And this also brings me to my next point. You should never be afraid to go out of your comfort zone and be more comfortable with uncertainty. So I don't know if you guys know, but I shifted my major twice in college. So basically, econ and math was my third major. I started college majoring in biomolecular science in the NYU Tandon School of Engineering. Even when I was applying to other schools, my major or course options were all over the place. So in UP, I will remember I was BS Math. In Ateneo, I was Applied Math and Finance. In LaSalle, it was, I think, Bioengineering. And when you're 18, you're not really sure what you want to do in the long run, and that's completely normal. I mean, props to those who do. But I would like to think I'm someone who calculates every decision or move I make, which sometimes can be hard. And I have a tendency to stick with what I started with. So my plan before was go graduate biomolecular science, go to med school and be a doctor. But halfway through my first semester in college, I think it was around October when classes started September, I realized pre-med wasn't really for me. I explored other majors and initially shifted to a course in the same school. So the course was called Science and Technology Studies. And so this course allowed me to take electives outside the School of Engineering. So I took my first economics class in my second semester to try it out. So I think I had basic econ in Pisay, but it wasn't really a hardcore econ because Pisay was STEM oriented. And I really liked my first macroeconomics class that I decided to transfer, took the leap of faith to transfer to the College of Arts and Sciences. And it was a good thing that I can do a joint major. So I did econ and math. But since I didn't know a lot of people with an econ major, especially coming from Pisay, it was an uncertain time for me because when I would look into future career prospects, I really didn't know what people did. Um, and looking back, I feel like half of my college life was stressing about what's in store for me in the future. Um, that there's a pro and a con to that. Good that I was pressured into looking for internships, trying out every single thing. But a con was I didn't relish every moment of it and just kept stressing about what the future has in store for me that I forgot to live in the present. It's okay if you don't have everything figured out. Some people have a 5-10 year plan. I also have one of those. But what you will learn throughout, or at least what I have learned in the last 5 years, is that a lot of factors affect these plans, and you should have the capacity to bring yourself up if it doesn't go your way, or if other factors affect it and you really can't control it. So, which brings me to my next point. We should be resilient in the face of adversity, resilient despite all the changes and the loneliness. In addition to the more academic or professional aspect of college, it was a big adjustment for me to move away from home. And I know a lot of you, especially if you're studying abroad, you're not going to be with your family. And I think being in NYU and NYC in general was harder because we didn't have a campus. So everyone was in and out of the city. So that's also a warning for people who want to go to NYU. We have a general area where all of the NYU buildings were, but it wasn't like high school where you could see familiar faces wherever you go. And because this was the case, it was harder to have a sense of community. And I think in Manila, I I was used to I'm super close to my family, to my friends, and I was used to them being physically present most of the time. So besides from them not being physically present, I also had to do everything on my own. No one to wake me up when I oversleep for class, no one asking me what I want to eat for dinner. Um, for some of you, this might be a whole different level of freedom, and that's something you might like because you don't have to ask permission from your parents if you were to go somewhere. And with this also comes a big responsibility. You're the only person who can keep yourself in check. And living alone also meant you have to be an adult faster. So are while your peers here are still living with their parents, it's basically high school, but it's just college with a more specialized field. I was applying for my social security card at 18. I was already paying taxes at 19 because I had an on-campus job, so that was part of it. And I was only in a dorm for the first 2 years, but eventually moved off campus. So I was apartment hunting at 21. And but that's also the good part of it, is that you get to be an adult and you get to be in the real world earlier than the rest of your peers. And when I was already adjusting to college life away from family and finally creating a home for myself in the US, the pandemic hit. So I was studying abroad in NYU London and had to go back to Manila because the school housing was closing down. I'm sure all of us here have experienced the difficult transition to online learning. So on top of the online setup, I had to take classes in Manila with a 12-hour time difference in New York. I remember sleeping at 9 a.m. and waking up at 4 p.m. right before dinner and taking my classes at night when no one was awake. I was I was a junior at that time. So that was the time I was recruiting for summer internships. And the industries that most economic majors were going into was banking, consulting. And I think at that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. That I considered or was pressured into going that direction since everybody else was also doing it. And with the crazy immigration policies in the US at that time, it was very uncertain for us international students and how that would plan out for work permits. So that was an additional source of stress that I had no control over. But I know, that this was nothing compared to what other people go through. Some got sick, some lost loved ones. We were all in a rut during the pandemic, but I realized it won't get better until I changed my mindset about certain things and only focusing on things that I could control and knew in my core that I was doing my best. So in 2021, I flew back again to the US in January. And in college, I really liked being busy. So maybe at some point in the peak of college, I had maybe 4, 5 organizations at a time. I joined a lot of it because I wanted to be busy. I wanted to expose myself to different things. But this was only the time that I learned to prioritize the things that were important to me. You meet a lot of well-meaning people in college, especially if you were asking for help. And I think I've met a lot of people who are willing to help me interview for banking or consulting, etc. Some of these might be noise. They mean well, but at the same time, these outside pressures can also pressure you into something that you wouldn't really enjoy. And I think this was the year that I just really focused on what I enjoyed doing. So in my senior year, I only ended up with one organization that I wanted to focus on. It was a mix of economic development, social impact, and consulting. I think it was in my introduction before. The organization's name is called Bridges for Enterprise. And I was the consulting director for that. So that role entailed 15 hours of my time. That's why I also had to quit my other orgs. But that's when I realized that these are the things that matter to me, and not maybe like a finance club that I would spend an extra 2, 3 hours of my time. And this was also the year that I invested my extra time and energy into nurturing my relationships with my friends, catching up with family, because that was also the year that I wasn't able to come home. So I was in the US for straight 11 months. I wasn't able to see family. And that was also the year that I went on more hikes in the first half of the year than my whole life. So it was really a balance. I think when you're stuck at home for a while in 2020, I didn't really go out that much here in the Philippines. But that was the time that I realized what matters to me most. And I'm glad I had that mindset going into 2022 because it really allowed me to prioritize what mattered most to me. And because of this, I was able to go into 2022 with my chin up. This varies for each individual, of course, that we always remember the bigger picture of why we're doing what we're doing. I think this year was specifically a turning point for me for many reasons. I graduated and I'm gonna start work in 2 months. There were the elections, and I took my whole last semester online, and I was only in school for about a month. So at that point, I I I knew this early on, but I think it was emphasized this year that really my core belief or my core values was really surrounded by my family, and because there's a lot of battles to be fought outside of school. So when even if your focus is academics, you have to remember the bigger picture of why you're studying what you're studying. So I took my whole last semester online. I was only in school for about a month in the spring to apply for my US optional practical training permit, but had to be in the Philippines most of the time. But it was a good thing. I was only taking 2 classes for my math major, but that also meant I had to take my classes from 10 p.m. to 2:30 every Monday, Wednesday, Manila time. But I think all of these experiences has has helped now that I think about it as I go into work. So how does this how do I make sense of these experiences in the long run, or how will this shape my career? And I think it's a good reminder of why I wanted to study abroad in the first place. And I hope now that you're applying, you applied to study abroad for the right reasons. I'm sure all of us, all of you have different reasons, but I hope we always remember the bigger picture when we do. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much, Jill, for your inspiring speech. I'm sure all the participants all learned a lot from you about being resilient and always remembering the bigger picture, amongst other things. And I hope that this sets a precedent for the coming weeks of the conference. And I'd also like to recognize the presence of our former camp team members in this call as well. We will also have another session after this at 6 p.m. about the college application process in a nutshell, which will be delivered by our Vice President for Conference, Sabine. Again, thank you very much for everyone, and I hope to see you all there in the next event. See you. Thank you as well.
Thank you. Oh, if anyone has any questions, my email, I'll write my email down. Sorry.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.